Hello, and welcome to the Hamumu Halloween Home Horror Hoedown. I am your host, Mike Hommel.
And I'm your other host, Solely Hommel.
And we're going to take you through 31 scary movies through the month of October, like we do every year. But for the first time this year, we're going to do it entirely in audio format. We like to mix it up every year. One thing you need to be aware of is that we will be employing a truly ghoulish number of spoilers throughout all of these reviews. So if you haven't seen the movie we're reviewing, maybe don't listen to our podcast until you do. We highly recommend you check them out and watch along with us. It's going to be fun for everybody. I mean, how could it not be? So if you're ready and you've watched the movie, please step inside our lair and let's begin. Our first movie this year is Unsane. It was released in 2018. It is rated R. We watched it on Amazon Prime, and it's 98 minutes long. So that's pretty much all you need to know about this movie, right?
Those are the important stats. So tell me why you picked this movie.
Well, for that story, we're going to have to go all the way back into early 2018, whenever this movie came out. And we had movie passes, which are garbage. Don't get them now.
They were awesome for a while.
For a while, they were a total ripoff of us ripping off the company because it was ridiculous. But anyway, they're no good anymore. Don't get those. But we wanted to see lots of movies all the time, and I saw this movie coming out, and I said we should go see that, and we never did. So it's been on my radar.
This.
Yeah, well, it's just one of many movies. Basically, we wanted to see every single movie that came out, and this was one of them.
I sort of thought we did see every movie that came out for like a month and a half or so.
We did pretty good.
I don't even remember this movie at all.
It's about a woman who is committed into an insane asylum and
into a psychiatric ward.
Yeah, I guess
it's a modern modern movie. It wasn't an insane asylum.
It's all the same.
But yes, she is committed to a psychiatric ward, sort of against her will.
Sort of.
I mean,
that's a whole discussion.
So that's why you picked this movie, because we didn't see it in the theater?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a really good reason, but I recognized it and said, hey, we should do that one.
And I seconded it because it has Claire Foy, and I had recently binged all of The Crown and think that she is amazing as Queen Elizabeth.
Is she still amazing now? I mean, this was in the past, but whatever.
Yeah, but that's one of my questions for later, so...
Let's start the back and forth conflict.
The witty banter?
Sure. Let's start the witty banter off with a discussion I wanted to have. An interesting fun fact about this movie is that it was shot entirely on an iPhone 7 Plus. And what did you think about that?
Well, so here's the thing. I remember you saying that before we started watching it.
I did, and I wish I hadn't. I should have seen what you thought without knowing that.
No, I totally forgot that you said that, and I didn't think about it once through the whole movie.
Huh. I did.
Really?
It was very distracting. I mean, if I hadn't known, I still would have thought it was weird. Like, the movie looked weird. It was kind of fisheye and kind of grainy and old. It looked like it was from the 70s.
Okay, so I noticed the fisheye part a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like, every time they looked at the clock, it was all fisheyed, which I thought was cool because it was, like, distorted time and, it was all symbolic and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think they were going for something, but it kind of seemed like that was it. And I feel like this whole idea was an experiment. Can you make a commercial movie shot entirely on an iPhone? And the answer is yes, but it's totally obvious that you did, and it looks a lot worse than a regular movie. Like, it really didn't look good. Like, it looked low budget, crappy. So there's a distinct thing there.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, it probably did. Like, sure, okay, yes. I don't have discerning taste about anything. Like, there's things I like and there's things I don't like, and whether they're actually well done doesn't come into it at all. But I kind of liked the artisticness that went into it, that as I'm thinking about it, were obviously choices that were made because of the whole iPhone thing. Like the, what do they call them, talking heads that they did so often.
Yeah.
Like, there were lots and lots of scenes, even with people who were talking to each other, where it was like straight on, full eye contact with the camera.
They were FaceTiming with each other.
Yes, which now I get, but I kind of thought it was interesting and, like, again, like, symbolic of something. Like, representative of the intensity of the situation or something.
Yeah, what I noticed was they worked really hard to make the movie look like it was in the 70s. Like, it wasn't. Another thing that bugged me is that everyone in the movie had an iPhone. I mean, this movie was sponsored. There was business going on with iPhones there. And they specifically, even in the subtitles, they would call it out as an iPhone, not a phone, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
But everybody dressed kind of 70s-y. All the colors were brown and gross, like in the 70s. And, and the music was very 70s and weird and, horror movie weirdness. And so I think they were going for that look to work with the fact that the film kind of looks that way because of the camera. Or maybe it doesn't automatically look that way and they did that on purpose. I don't know. Maybe an iPhone is amazing.
I don't know. What did you think of the blue at the beginning and at the end?
Yeah, I don't know. It was just blue.
It was just blue.
It doesn't do a lot for me. But that seemed like a 70s movie kind of thing too, where everything's way too filtered and you're like they were going overboard to show you things and going wah, wah, wah. That's what movies did in the 70s. They did that.
Yeah, they did. So it made me want to keep track of first lines and first shots of these movies. All through the month. I want to pay attention to what's the first line and what's the first shot. So this movie, the first line is, "I love it when you wear blue." And then it's somebody traveling through the forest, but through a blue filter. It's all blue, which I thought was interesting. And then they wrapped that around at the end.
It was all
you
blue
end up,
again.
when they're back in the forest, it's all blue again. So, yeah. I don't know, I thought that was interesting. Mostly because I'm going to see how the rest of them do with first lines and first shots.
That's a very fun thing to check out. I like it.
I'm pretty fun.
Yeah, you are fun.
So Sawyer, we already said, Sawyer ended up committed to this psychiatric ward for 24 hours. She ended up there because she revealed to her psychiatrist or counselor or whatever it was that she had suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
So she gets involuntarily, it's called voluntary.
Yeah.
But she didn't really realize what was happening, which I thought was interesting. So the story also has a strong secondary plot around the unethical practices of insurance companies and psychiatric wards. And
that's a big part of it.
Using people as money makers, basically, in situations like this. So I guess my question, with that background, is, do you think that Sawyer belonged in that ward? And so, thinking of it in terms of a few different points, at the beginning, for that first 24 hours. And then after the 24 hours is done, did she belong there? Should she have had to stay for the 7 days? And then once she gets out, do you think she should have still been in there?
That is interesting. It kind of ties into something I was going to ask you, but more, it's different. She was nutballs. She was not okay at all. But that doesn't mean, really, she probably would have been okay in the real world. So she seemed crazy to me. She would go off on people and start attacking them out of the blue for, no reason. She was not good, and she needed help, but I don't feel like she should have been forced into help. She was reacting to an unfair situation, but the way she was lashing out was so extreme. She was really out there, it seemed like to me. But at the same time, you could feel for her because, if you were nobody was believing anything you were saying, you would be freaking out too. But she was doing such a bad job of it. It's so easy to not do that and to be oh no, I totally understand. So I can get out of here in my 24 hours, just make it through this day. But no, she went nuts.
She was definitely not happy about being in there, and yeah, her reactions were pretty extreme. So I feel like that first 24 hours, it was weird to me because there were so many times when she clearly knew what needed to be said. She started kind of, cozying up to various people and saying the right things. She was super manipulative, But then I'm like, if she's so capable of manipulating people, how did she not realize that if she said that she had a specific plan for her own death, like, how did she not know that was going to cause, like, I knew that as she was saying it. I was like, oh, don't say that. That's not going to go well for you.
Don't tell a therapist that.
I mean, but then that means, like, if she did say it and she did have a plan, then I sort of feel like maybe that 24 hours was a good idea for her. Although I think it could have been handled differently.
A lot differently.
Yeah, it was real creepy. Then, yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. Like, her reactions while she was in there for that 24 hours were so extreme that she sort of seemed unsane. Like,
unsane.
It was extreme.
It was the titular mental condition.
The titular mental condition, exactly. And then at the end, lots of exciting things happen at the end that I don't know that we necessarily want to give away. But she's out there in the world, and she's clearly dealing with some PTSD sort of things from this very traumatic thing that happened, understandably. And on top of the whole, like, previous difficulties she was having over this whole stalker situation, and I don't know, I sort of feel like she would be more in need of psychiatric care now than she was at the beginning, and I sort of think she needed it at the beginning.
Yeah, she definitely was not doing good at the end, but there's a piece missing at the end that is confusing to me. Maybe this is a separate issue, so I will ignore that and move on to what we're talking about. So the craziness, the way she lashed out, it had me the whole movie going, what's the twist here? Like, she's clearly insane, just like they thought, and am I not really seeing what's happening? Is it not real? Is it an unreliable narrator? What's going on here? Because she was so crazy, and I think she was just really put upon, which I would be too, but I feel like I wouldn't be kicking people.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there was a definite sense of unreliable narrator hanging over us. Like, at any minute, the movie was going to take this whole unexpected twist, and it didn't.
That's what I was disappointed in, is that in the end it felt pretty straightforward, which I guess is sort of a spoiler in a way to say, but it kept seeming like things were more than they appeared, and then they kind of just were what they appeared. Which
was actually one of my other questions, was that this movie, the writing felt pretty predictable, and, like, I enjoyed it. It wasn't a bad story necessarily. Like, it was worth watching, I guess, but it was predictable. And so one of my questions was going to be, were there any surprises or twists for you?
Well, I mean, I guess that was kind of the thing, was figuring out what's really going on, and it turned out what was going on was approximately what they were showing us. I mean, that is in itself a twist, just because you weren't sure until you're sure, but it's not much of a twist. It was very predictable.
Yeah, it's not a great selling point for your movie when the twist is, surprise, there are no surprises.
So that was one of my notes, was that it felt very basic and straightforward.
Yeah.
And this gets into not my next question, but another question that I have. We'll just mix it up. The decisions she made, the way she handled things, like, I kept that was almost part of, is she crazy? Because the choices she made were so bad to me. Like, did it feel to you like she was in her right mind with the things she was choosing to do?
Not all the time. Like, there were times, well, like I said, there were times where she clearly, like, clicked into, to get through this, I have to play the game, and I know how to play this game, and I know how to suck up to this nurse, and I know how to manipulate this guy, and whatever. Like, she definitely was there.
And I was sort of waiting for the movie to do that, to have her figure it all out and move ahead using her smarts to get herself out.
Sure. But then she would fall into her, like, really sassy, sarcastic rebel persona, which was not helping her in any situation here. Like,
no.
Somebody would give her a little bit of grief in the kitchen or in the dining room, and she'd, like, throw coffee on him all of a sudden. Like, seriously, you know what's going to happen. They've told you over and over and over again that you're going to get put in the basement in solitary confinement if you attack another person, and you're throwing coffee at someone because she, like, sassed you a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, she was very uncentered. Unsane, even, you could say.
You could say. Yeah, very impulsive, not making great choices through the whole thing.
Not good choices. A danger to herself and others, even.
I mean, yeah. Which is interesting because there were lots of times where the things that the staff, not counting the one staff member who, like, didn't belong there and whatever, like, that's separate. But, like, I don't think the rest of the staff was in on, like, the real stalkery piece of it and the real scary part of it. Like, that one nurse was all, you're a godsend to the bad guy, and, like, she truly didn't know that he was the one doing this stuff. And, like, even at the beginning when they're like checking her into the ward, all of the things that they were saying, I was like, well, this could be really creepy people because they're being really creepy.
Yeah.
And it can also be viewed through the filter of they deal with unstable personalities all the time, and, like, this is literally the best way to get them through this process without them going off. I'm like, that
could be.
It was creepy to me on, like, a real world level that those two things are so identical. Like, that you literally can't tell the difference between them.
Well, that leads me to my actual second question.
Okay.
Which is, step one of this question is this a horror movie? Always our question. Really, it should be a standard question.
Yeah, for sure. So, I feel like we have this discussion every year, multiple times over.
I know. Because
you and I have sort of different criteria for horror films. And this is one of those movies that falls into the, this is actually kind of scary to me category, because I can see this happening. I mean, there's, like, extremism to it.
Yeah.
But even the extreme parts in this movie, I'm like, probably could happen.
Yeah, it could.
Like,
I don't think it's realistic that, well, some not super realistic, but it could happen.
Yeah, there wasn't any part of it where I was like, no, that wouldn't happen. And those are always the scariest movies to me. So I feel like I would call it a horror film, but I consider psychological thrillers to be horror films. And I know that you kind of might not feel the same way. So what do you think?
I would, yeah, I'll allow it. This can be horror, but it leads into my other concern, which is there are two horrors in the movie. There's the evil stalker and there's the evil system.
Yes.
And I'll just say for myself, the system was way more scary. That's totally real. There's 100% real. I listened to a podcast about them doing this very same thing in the drug treatment system. So, I mean, that was super scary and super real. Whereas the stalker was over the top a little bit, and, like, you know, he accomplished things that I don't think he would have gotten away with, among other things.
Yeah.
That was not quite on the same level. So it's interesting in that way that there's the scariness of the system. That could have been the movie for me. Like, how is she going to get out of this system?
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, the stalker part, like you're saying, it might, you know, it wasn't as realistic. But the thing is, like, I think in movies, people get caught.
Yeah.
Quickly. Like, you know, and everything gets wrapped up in 2 hours or whatever. But in real life, I think there are a lot of opportunities, like coincidence, where people get away with stuff for a while because, like, they just happen to get away with it. Like, you know, they just happen to show up at the motel room of the person who is in town and nobody really knows she's there. And so they can kill her and eventually they'll get caught. But for the duration of the movie, like, they get away with it. Like, nobody knows because nobody knows to be looking for her yet. So, yeah, the whole thing seemed very creepy to me in a that could happen kind of way.
Yeah. There's just something about that system locking you in that there's just no way out. Like, everywhere you turn, it can block you in another way. And it's just awful.
It's
the
why
worst.
every time I go to the doctor and they're like, just sign on this little thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I signing? I need to see a copy of this. Because, like, the cops show up and they're like, no, look, here's a piece of paper where she signed and said she wanted to be locked up. And they're like, all right.
Well, and I want to clarify to our listeners that what you're talking about is the signing pad a lot of doctors' offices use, where they literally don't give you any paper. They just have a machine that you sign on it. You can't even see your own signature happening. Mm-mm. You just sign something, and they're like, great, your signature's in our system. And you're like, I have no idea what my signature is on. It could be anything.
And here's the thing. I literally do ask every time. I'm like, what am I signing? And every time I get attitude. Like, I get crap from them because... why aren't I just signing it? Like, their number one answer is always, it's just protocol. And I'm like,
Yeah,
and I still want to see what it is that I'm signing because I don't know what it says. And I hate that system so much.
Oh, it's awful. It's the worst.
So I kind of need to go back. A little bit for my question, my last question, because it's about Claire Foy again.
Uh-oh.
So she plays Sawyer. And like I said before, she plays Queen Elizabeth in The Crown. And so my observation about her just is that in both of those roles, she has like the best resting angry face that I have ever seen. Like, I kind of aspire to have the face that gives away nothing like she does. Like, she can just like stare straight at someone, stare straight at the camera, and you're like a little creeped out because she's sort of dead inside.
Yeah.
But in a cool way.
That was kind of her problem in this movie, that she was crazy when she should have been a normal person.
But it makes her good for the roles
Yeah.
because, like the Queen Elizabeth role, she's a very, like, stoic. It's all about how stoic she is. And so then she just has this look that she gives the camera where you're like, ooh, there's so much going on in her head and she's not letting anybody on the outside see what it is. And I feel... I don't know, that feels very relatable to me in some way.
Because there's a lot going on in your head.
And I don't like to let people see what it is.
What is it? You can tell us.
Should I give you my resting angry face?
No, I don't want that.
So anyway, I guess my question is basically, what did you think of the way she played this role? Like, not the role itself, how it was written, but like how she brought that role to life.
Well, I mean, I think she did a really good job. I'm not good at separating, what happened in the role versus how it was portrayed. Because what I see is, like, she was doing really good acting, but it kept driving me nuts that she kept flipping out on people. Like, stop doing that. That's not good.
But, like, her flipping out seemed believable.
Yes, it did.
It was all very natural.
That's the thing, is it always made me think she's not sane. Because a sane person could handle this and let it go a little bit and, keep things calm long enough to get out of this situation. But she was digging herself in so much deeper with every single thing she did. Basically, the staff had to keep her locked up and keep increasing how much they were drugging her and locking her up because she kept flipping out more and more.
Yeah.
It's like they were just doing their jobs because she was so out of control.
So I just, in this moment, realized that, like, all the other characters around her emphasize that even more. Like, so Nate's character, he'd been there for 3 weeks because he was in for, like, a 4-week opioid withdrawal program. He'd been there for 3 weeks and wasn't getting in any trouble. And was, flying under the radar, was doing what he needed to do, was, like, yeah, super calm. And, which, fine, okay, it's maybe a little unfair because he was actually undercover and was actually playing a role. But even Violet, whose name is remarkably similar to the word violence, or violent, even Violet, who was actually unstable.
Yeah,
like,
she made me think of Orange is the New Black.
Yes, she actually had issues. Like, she was a column 1 person. Like, she actually belonged there. It wasn't just insurance fraud. And she managed to fly under the radar and not get in trouble.
Yeah, she knew how to work the system.
Right. So the fact that Sawyer. I keep wanting to call her Sydney. The fact that Sawyer couldn't do it seems even more significant in comparison.
Yeah, she was. Well, and that's a challenge I had, is that I didn't feel like, as the protagonist of the movie, I'm like, she's not really likable. She's not making me root for her to succeed. Like, she's trapped in this terrible position, and so I want her to get out of it because I identify with that. I want to not be trapped in a thing like that. But the way she's going about it, I'm like, fine, lock her up. She's earned it.
Well, especially toward the end.
Yeah.
Speaking of Violet.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
not cool.
And that was going back to my other, I don't know, something we discussed. Like, the choices she made there, I get in movie terms that she came up with this plan of, let's bring Violet down here so I can get the knife. But she had total control over her stalker at that point. She could have gotten away with so much. You know what she could have done with this whole thing is, yes, I love you. Let's go to the cabin. Hey, we're at the cabin. Go get us some groceries. Problem solved.
Absolutely. He was 100% eating out of her hand. And she opted for violence instead of manipulation.
Violence.
Yeah. I thought that was very interesting. But then she did it in such a poor way, so she was not thinking things through at any point in this movie.
No. I think there might be something to that she was crazy. I mean, we know she's crazy because even at the end of the movie, I know crazy is not a great way to describe it, but she has a mental problem.
She was traumatized.
Yeah, but even at the end of the movie, she definitely, I think PTSD is a good term for it, because she was basically having flashbacks. She was not able to operate in normal life because of what she had been through.
Well, I mean, really, she was re-traumatized because she was already traumatized to begin with because of her whole experience with the stalker, which was very real. Like, they showed us that was something that was really happening, which is a really traumatic situation. And then to go through all of this, like, committed, being committed thing, and have the re-traumatization of the stalker piece happen all over again. I mean, yeah, she was fragile to begin with, and I feel like at the end of the movie she's broken. But broken, and nobody's really paying attention to it. Like she's not taking care of herself, and there's nobody around to take care of her.
Well, and she's putting on not a brave face, but a sane face to the world, like as a very competent adult person who's in charge of things.
And it's clearly working because they've given her a raise. Like, she's pretending that everything's fine, and everyone around her believes her because the people who might have been able to tell that she was faking are gone.
Yeah, because they all got arrested thanks to her.
Well, no, those aren't the people I was thinking of.
Oh.
I was thinking of, like, her mother.
Her mom.
And, like, she doesn't have family. She doesn't have friends who know her. Which is, like, the true, like, security system for people who are struggling emotionally.
Yeah. Well, with all that said, I think we have to come down to a big conclusion on this. How are you going to rate this movie on our patented out of 5 system that we patented?
We patented the number 5?
The out of 5 system. Nobody else is allowed to rate things out of 5 ever again.
Okay. But it's not just like 5 stars, right? It's like out of 5 something, right?
Yeah, I was tempted to make it out of something fun each time, which we could do, but that's a lot of work. I've done that in previous years. But yes, as a rule, no one may rate things out of 5 except for us, no matter what units they're using. 5 is the number.
That's awesome.
It's a patent.
It's a patent. And all you have to do is say it's patented, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's how that works.
Okay, so I kind of feel bad saying this because I did enjoy watching this movie. But it's sort of like a palate cleanser. Like, it's an interesting first movie for our month because it feels so kind of neutral. Like, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It had a fairly solid story. Like, the plot holds together pretty well, but there was nothing spectacular or even all that interesting about it. There was no uniqueness to it. It was very predictable. It was, like, scary, but not really scary. It had, like, a couple of gory moments, but not really gory. Like, it's very neutral. I am going to give this 3. I'm trying to think of something clever to rate it with.
iPhones.
3 out of 5 iPhones.
All right.
What are you going to rate it, my dear?
It's fascinating the way you describe your rating, because it's very much how I feel. It's, like we just discussed, how it's very straightforward and basic storyline and all that. I felt it was okay. It wasn't terrible. So I put it very middle of the road. But for me, the middle of the road, even though really 1's the bottom, so maybe you were right about the 3, I like to call 2.5 the middle of the road.
Oh, you're holding on to the hope that we might have a 0. We've had zeros in the past.
I'm going to work really hard to make sure we get a 0 this month, because that's one of my favorites. Okay, so I'm giving it 2.5 out of 5 iPhone 7 Pluses.
Excellent.
And that's our review of Unsane, our first Halloween horror movie for the month.
For Best Halloween Ever 2018.
Woo!
Woo!
All right. We'll catch you guys on the flippity floppity when we review some other movie tomorrow. I have a different ending.
No, I like flippity floppity.